Charlie, thanks for coming back. It's nice to see you again. I know we talked last week and I started getting to know you, but I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. So tell me, what's happened in the last week? Anything you want to talk about?
It's been a pretty quiet week. I'm still doing the stand-up comedy.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying that, even though my wife really doesn't like it so much. Got in a fight with my son again. But other than that, I think for the most part, it's been a pretty quiet week. I wish things were a little bit different in the household. We're always worried about what's going to happen next. That's about it.
Okay, that's interesting. So tell me, when you said you wish things were a little different, what would that look like? What do you mean by different?
Well, it's been a long time since I've had a real concrete job, and so it's been difficult to keep myself motivated, I guess, and trying to figure out what the next steps are going to be in our house. So I guess I wish things were different that way. I feel like it's a no end, even though I'm doing this job coaching thing where I can do this janitorial thing, but I don't think it's a long-term fit for me, so it's a little frustrating on my part. And I think it kind of portrays a little bit with my relationship with my son. I wish that was different. And I always feel like my wife is always nagging me just to do more. So it's just difficult waking up every single day, kind of encountering the same thing. I just wish it was different.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a lot of different goals that we could start to talk about and maybe work towards. What do you think is the most important to you that we start working on? What would you like to talk about first?
I think probably relationships with my family. I wish they were a little bit different, stronger. I think earlier on they were good. Before we had problems, it just seems like every time that we turn our heads, there's always a different crisis or something else to worry about. And I just wish things were back to the old days where it wasn't so difficult each day.
Okay, can you tell me about the old days? Like, what did that look like?
Well, the old days were great. I used to have all these inventions and ideas and things that I can do. I knew stars and I knew people from my earlier years, and things were great. I had all these ideas. I wanted to be this special person where people would walk down the street and say, "That's Mr. Shore's house." And it just doesn't seem it's like the same thing anymore. And I think ever since I've lost my job, I can't find another one. I find that my only independence is when I'm up on stage and I'm telling jokes about the life I used to have. And so I just wish things were a little bit different that way, back to the old days.
Mm-hmm. What are the new days? What exactly is the challenge? You said you're always kind of turning your head and seeing a new problem. Is that just the arguments you talked about having, or is there anything else that stands out to you that has changed?
I don't know, it just seems it's difficult. It seems that every time I confront my wife or I come home, I'm always worried about what I'm going to walk into. She's always complaining about different things, and I get it. I don't feel like I'm the person who's bringing home the money that's helping support the family, so I feel that I'm not pulling my part or pulling my weight in the house. But there's only so much I can do. But every single time something happens at our house, she takes care of everything. She controls the situation. I think she actually kind of thrives on it. And so I find it difficult to do my part. And I find that same situation with my kids. I think that she is a controlling person in our house. And so for me to be a man and be able to have a relationship with my son, and my daughter's out of the house now, so I don't get to see her anymore. She has her own career. I thought at one time I was going to be able to manage her career, and that didn't work out. And every time I start a new job, it doesn't work. And so I just wish it was different, where I was able to be in control of my own life.
Okay, so if we were looking into the future and you were in control of your own life, what kind of things do you think would have changed between now and then? What are some goals that maybe we could set or work on to get you to the place where you feel like you have more control? It sounds like you feel that having a job would give you more of a sense of that, and having a steady job. What about in your relationships? Is there anything that's missing in the way that you communicate, or anything that we could work on changing there that would make it a little easier to get along at home?
Problem I have with my son, we'll use that as an example. My dad, the way that I was raised, was You know, if I messed up or I did something wrong, my dad was very physical. He learned from the streets. And disciplining me with his fist was something that was all the time. I don't hit my children, but I don't ever see that there's any type of relationship. I get mad when he does things that he shouldn't be doing, and I can't figure out a way to communicate. He does some really bonehead stuff from time to time, and he never understands that. He doesn't understand I'm just trying to help him be a better man, but for some reason that's never being communicated the correct way. So I wish there was a way that the two of us could see eye to eye. At one time I did see a therapist, or the family saw somebody, and they suggested that perhaps we go out and we learn how to, or I teach them how to fish, or I take them to play miniature golf. But oh my God, that was such a disaster. I mean, the guy can't fish. I mean, he's afraid to touch a fish. He can't hold a worm. And miniature golf, I mean, it was like he was doing it left-handed with one hand. I mean, so we fought the entire time. Came home, Nancy was so mad at me. So it just seems like everything I try to do to try to create a father-son relationship with him isn't working. And so I get frustrated. I just want to wipe my hands of it and just walk away.
Okay, so it sounds like when you've tried to change the situation, when you've gone out and done things together, nothing was really different because it was the same communication style and you'd get the same frustrations. So maybe there are things that we can work on when it comes to how you guys communicate, or what you're able to, how you're able to interact, and what you're able to do to calm yourself down and give yourself some time to process when he starts to get on your nerves, or when you start to push his buttons. Maybe there are some things internally that I can help you find tools to deal with that frustration so that the situation doesn't escalate into more of the same kind of fights.
I'd like that, because one of the things I see that he gets picked on a lot, and I did too growing up, and I wish there was a way that I could get him to understand or see that, because I was in that same situation. And I think that maybe that's why my father was so tough on me. He was trying to keep me away from that. But my son's getting picked on, I was picked on, and I feel for him. I don't feel like there's anything that I can do. So I'd like an opportunity to figure out a way that the two of us could see eye to eye, because I know that would be something that I hope that he would like to see as well. I mean, I'm his father, right? I mean, isn't that what every kid wants? He wants to have the love of his father?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And so it sounds like you've had some of the same experiences when you were younger that he's having right now that are causing him to react. So I wonder if you can think back to some of those you don't have to tell me all about your childhood, but if you think back to some of those memories that you have and situations that your son is going through, like being picked on, can you remember what you took away from that, or how you felt when that was happening? What are some words that you would use to describe it?
I don't know what words, I remember scenarios where my dad would come home and he was either drinking or he was gambling, and my mom would get physically violent with him. You know, I had two sisters. I always remember that I used to make fun of them a lot and beat up on them. And I don't know, I'm not sure why I always did that. I feel bad, and I don't have a relationship with them now. I don't know, but I want my relationship back with my son.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt that I had that. And I really feel that we're losing that. So whatever ideas that you think that you could help me with would certainly be beneficial to our family.
Well, it sounds like since you have been through some of the same experiences, even though it's difficult that this is happening to your son and it sounds really frustrating for you to watch, you also, that's kind of, there's a positive there, that since you know what it's like to have gone through those things, you can kind of draw on, what feelings you had and what might someone had said to you. If someone had told you, you're not alone going through this, do you think that would have made a difference?
I think so.
Okay, so maybe we can find ways to help you relate to your son and break through this wall of the arguments that you say you're having. Is there anything that you wish someone had said to you back then when you were being picked on and going through those situations at home? Is there anything that another adult could have said to you that would have made you feel better? If we can start there by trying to identify how your son is feeling, so that you can be that person for him that is able to reach out. I
think I was afraid of my dad. I think I admired and respected him for his toughness. I mean, I think he was an amateur boxer or something, but he never gave me those skills. He never was able to be that person in my life to teach me to stick up for myself. And so I think that's why I was picked on so much. And when I always saw my mom physically abuse my dad or get upset, they seemed like they were always fighting. So I always tried to not talk about my life, so I really didn't have an adult figure that I could talk to. And so I think maybe that's why I always picked on my sisters, because they were younger than me and they were easier for me to pick on, somebody simple. And maybe that's why I joined the service. I just kind of wanted to run away from everything, and I really enjoyed that part of my life. I enjoyed being away. I enjoyed being away from the family, and I got to meet all these great stars, and I had this great life, and I had all these ideas of what I wanted to accomplish. And then here's my life now, and I have a family. But I really wish I would come back with my son, and maybe I can teach him something about what my dad didn't teach me.
And is there anything that you feel specifically that your dad didn't teach you and you had to learn on your own? Something that you can help your son with? Any kind of skills or anything like that that you wish you had been able to take away from that relationship? It sounds like you learned a lot from the military and from the rest of your life, and that you're able to grow. So I guess what would you even say to like a younger version of yourself?
Just be a man. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do the things on yourself, but to also be respectful of people around you and know that if you've made a mistake, to man up to it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that's what disappoints me about my son. You know, he does okay in school, but he does some really stupid stuff. I just really feel like smacking him upside the head and saying, you know, do this, do it the correct way. But I don't know if that's the correct way to do it. That's how my dad would have taught me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid of hitting my kids for what I used to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So, not really sure.
Well, it sounds like you're able to identify certain things that you don't want to do with your kids, and that you have a pretty strong line there. You've said a couple times that I don't lay hand on them and I don't want to hit them, but that you feel like maybe you're out of other options and you're just struggling to find a good alternative. So I think that is a really strong positive that you already have ideas about what you want your relationship to look like. So we can work towards that, and just right now even just exploring, you know, how your son is feeling and being able to be empathetic and relate to that. I think that's going to help you a lot in your goal. So one thing that we might work on, we could talk about different ways. If you could even help me by thinking about different instances that happen in the next week between the time you leave here and the time we meet again. You could take a mental note of the different frustrations that you run into and just process what you're feeling in that moment, and bring them back next week. We can talk about, you know, what are some alternative ways to react so that you can get the kind of outcome that you're looking for, which it sounds like is a better relationship with your son and an easier way to communicate.
I think I can do that.
Okay, great, good. I'm glad that you're willing to do that. That'll help. Then is there